Hello, this is Mary Beth from Tizzy Witch Studios. So in my last video I was telling you about my Four Seasons trees that I have been working on in my little Noritake cups. Here you see I put a little base on them. That's my spring. I showed you my summer, and this is fall. So again, a little base there. So in the last video I showed you how I was working on kind of my liquid Sculpey for the bark, the trunk, the branches. So I did make this batch a little bit thicker that's going to go on here. So as you can see, this is going to be my winter tree, and this one will be bare branches with a little bit of snow on it. So I took this is 26 gauge florist wire that I kind of twisted and turned all into first my trunk, and then spread it out into sections to make the bare branches. And then the trunk I just wrapped with this really thin 24 gauge wire. So when I do these, I always cover the branches first, and I do one bake, and then I come back and I do the trunk. So what I was really hoping for, I'm going to get this out of the way, with this was that I could get a little bit thicker consistency than I had done on my spring tree. I'm sure you cannot see, but the way it went on was very smooth. So for this it didn't matter because I covered it all with blossoms, and I was very happy with how that turned out. But for this, I wanted to be able to have a little bit, to see a little bit more texture of the bark. So I did a quick little practice here. Ooh, I'm probably gonna get it all over my fingers. Just on a scrap piece, and I put that on with a paintbrush as opposed to the toothpick that I did last time. And it looks more like how I want a tree branch to look. So I was happy with that. So let's get started. So I've got a brush here. Let me get this toothpick out of here. And we're going to start covering these branches. Now the first thing that I noticed was that it was much easier, this liquid clay adhered to this branch much better if I coated it first with the Sculpey Bacon Bond. Okay. So when I went to go reorder this when it was coming out, I didn't see Bacon Bond. It was called something else. Let's see. Oven Bake Clay Adhesive. So I'm hoping that's the same thing as the Bacon Bond, because I go through it like crazy. I use tons of it. So with my brush, I'm going to kind of liberally cover this. There we go. We'll make sure we really get into all those crevices. So you don't want to use your best paintbrush for this. So far, for days, I've just been able to leave it and it hasn't hardened or anything like that. But I'm going to try cleaning the brush with just some plain rubbing alcohol and kind of see how that comes out. Okay, almost done. Just a little bit more there. All right, I think that's pretty well covered. So now we will start with my homemade liquid Sculpey, my bark. So it's pretty messy. Still reminds me of frosting. Brownie batter is like the consistency. So here it looks like I'm glopping it on pretty heavy. which I am on some of these branches because I'm really going to want a thicker spot for my snow to sit. This is really coming out much better than I thought it would. I like using the green florist wire as opposed to just your shiny silver toned wire, because then if you do by any chance miss anything, as I do with my 50-year-old eyes, you don't seem to see those little mistakes. And then anything that I do have that I can really see showing green through, that's where I'll hit it with some snow. So I've got one more branch here. Now this side will be the back, so that doesn't have to be perfect because it will be sitting in the cup. But I do want to make sure it's covered just for strength. Alright, now that I have everything covered, I want to just kind of go and brush it down. So it just looks like the branches are a little more natural. Get off any gloopy bits. Alright, you can kind of see that. So the next step will be for me to go and bake this, and then I will come back and work on the trunk. Okay, so I'm back. I have baked this. All I did was just a quick 10 minutes on the 275, and it came out with a little bit more of the texture that I want, especially you can see here on the branch. Kind of looks like there might be a knot. My con to this, what I don't like, is that it's still quite shiny. I don't know if I love that, although with these cups it might complement because it is so shiny and luminescent. But so before I came back, I did hit this, my little practice piece, with just a medium grit sandpaper, just kind of a little bit, not so much that I'm going down to where the wire is exposed, but just enough to kind of dull that shine just a bit. And I think I like the look of that a little bit better. And then the other thing that I noticed is it's still really pliable. It comes out almost like a plastic coated wire. So after this has, so obviously this is cured. It's only been baked once, possibly after baking it more times that I tend to do. Here, I'll do the trunk, I'll bake it again, I'll set it in its clay spot, it's dirt there. I'll set that, and then it'll get a final bake again. So really this gets baked 3 times. The more you bake it, the stronger your clay is. So it may have less pliability. Is that a word? It's my word. So anyways, I am very happy with how this is coming out. So now we will work on our trunk. And again, we want to start with just our Bake and Bond Sculpey. Give that a really good thick coat. Switch brushes and get into my little liquid bark. And again, I'm going to apply this pretty liberally. I'll want that to blend into what I have. And I don't mind if this is a little thick because I do want the trunk to be thicker. Come on. So I hope some of these videos you'll learn a little something, even if it's not to your style of clay that you work with, if it's not really what you make. I noticed, during this pandemic and lockdown, I watched so many YouTube videos. I was constantly on Pinterest and looking for ideas and different techniques. And so that's what really made me decide to want to make some of these videos. Hopefully, you know, I'm kind of paying it forward and somebody else will learn a new technique to them. So this I could see this method working out really well in jewelry, any little fine bits that you want to do. Okay, so I've kind of played with this a little bit. It looks kind of knobby. I want it to look a little bit more organic. I guess that's the word I was looking for earlier, that I wanted for you to really see on these branches. A more organic, realistic type of look. Ooh, that's really good and goopy. All right. Might have gotten a little carried away that last time. So before I baked it, when I had the video paused before, I did go through with a clean toothpick to kind of move this around to where I wanted it. There we go. And again, I don't care so much about the back of this because that won't be seen. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, I'm liking that. Let's see if we can get this to kind of come down. So once I do put this into its polymer dirt in its cup, I can, if I want to, make some roots coming out with snakes of clay. Okay, so I'm going to go bake this and then we'll come back. Okay, while we're waiting for that to bake, we can get our base into our cup here. We'll start with, you always want to make sure you condition your clay really well. I'm using a really dark brown. You will only see the very front of it. See, I kind of slice it there, and then there'll be snow on top. And I've already kind of pre-chosen my color mix for the snow. Okay, so that's ready and conditioned. I'm going to take my brush, make sure I'm on the right side of my cup. There we go. There we are. You don't need a lot, but just enough for it to adhere to the inside of your cup. You don't want to do all this work and have it pop out. There. Get a rough idea of the shape that I want. And I think that's going to be way too much clay. There we go. Oh, take two. You'll notice I'm not super savvy on technology with this, so I hope you kind of bear with me with that. So I'm just kind of roughly putting that in, kind of how I think I want my snow. Maybe a little snow drift up. Oops. And then I'm just going to take and slice that flush. And there we go. So once my tree comes out of the oven, I'll take it in, I'll kind of test and see how that sets. I might have to squish this down just a little bit more in case it's too high for my top branches on the tree. So I'll show you what I do while we're waiting for that baking. Even if I do have to squish it down, I can redo this. So I'm just going to use just a cheapy bristle brush. This is what I use to make sure all my little miniature leaves are secured. And this will just give this a little bit of texture to look like the dirt. Texture, 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 all about texture. I love it. Okay. That's pretty good. I want to make sure that black border shows. Alright, let's go see if our tree is ready. Okay, so our tree is baked. Everything came out how I wanted it to. It's cooled. I started off camera roughing it up a little bit just to make sure it would do what I wanted it to do, and it really did. Kind of took away some of that shine. So just kind of get in between the crotch of some of these branches. Just to kind of get some of that shine off it. Not too much, but a little bit. Take away any dust that I created. Okay, so let's make sure it's going to sit in our cup. I do want it to stick out more like some of the other trees that I had done. Make sure you can see what I'm doing here instead of holding it under my nose. And I'm just going to push that down in, kind of test how it looks. Oh, I like that. Okay, so I'm going to pop that out for a second. I've got my hole there, so I'm good. And I want to put just a little bit more of that Bacon Bond in there. You're going to want to do that anytime you're hitting baked clay to the raw clay to make sure that sticks. And it doesn't matter if it's messy because I'm going to have a bunch of snow on there. Okay, can you see? Let me see if I can stand, and there we go. Alright, so that's how we're doing that. So right now I'm going to set this aside and we will move on to making our snow. So this is a technique that I always use with blending my colors, and then I do what I call my picking method, and I do it for grass, trees, the leaves on the trees. So I love these just little dollar store cups. So when I do blend some colors for other projects, I had done some water for a waterfall. I keep kind of like with like colors in there. So I'm going to want just a little bit of this, because snow isn't just white, right? When you look at it, you can see a bit of blue just like you would water. So I did wash my hands in between the dark, but I will show you a little trick that I learned. I wish I knew her name, but it was a YouTube video that I saw, and she just kept a little bit of light colored clay just to make sure you got all that. Oh, I can see. I got a little bit of the dark out of my fingerprints so that won't mar my snow. There. Nice little trick. So I don't want a lot of blue, but just a small snake. Take that, set that aside. Alright, and so this is a blend that I had done with white and a translucent, not the whitest translucent, so I hope that it doesn't come out looking too yellow. But a lot of times I use the translucent clay. I have said it in a previous video, I do not like white or black clay. I don't like the consistency of it. Even with the Primo, it is not as firm. The black tends to be very spongy, and the white really is just mushy. So I do like to blend a little bit of that translucent in there, and when some of that shows through, it actually creates a pretty cool effect. Another reason I don't like working with white is you tend to pick up any little bit of fuzz. When my dog was alive, I had dog hair in all my clay. I'll roll it on this so I don't pick up any bits of darker clay. Okay, this is really kind of getting to be how I want it. So you can see mostly white coming through, but you can see that just little bits of blue, little bits of that translucent showing through. So I'll make my end here. And then I'm just going to roll this into a coil so that when I pick, if on one spot I want a little bit more blue, or whatever, I can get that. Okay, let's get this out of here. Set that down, and then I need my needle tool. Make sure that's clean. Okay, so now we can start with the snow. So my picking technique is really simple. First, let me pick out that little bit. And it's really literally just what it sounds like. You're just kind of picking. Sometimes I like to do it, I mix my color and get my swirl, and I let it sit so it firms up. It flakes away and picks away a little bit better. But just for now, to kind of show you, I just will get these little bits. Oh, let's see. I don't think I want to use the brush. Might be a little too heavy right now. We'll just use a toothpick. So that's a really nice thing about polymer clay. You don't have to spend a ton of money. I mean, you know, box of toothpicks, what's that, $1? So I'm going to start out, I'll just do kind of one branch here, one branch section to kind of show you how that. So I want to just put my liquid clay on first. Again, we're going from cured clay to baked. A lot of times it's good to look at a picture while you're working on something so you can kind of see how that snow is going to sit on your branches, or with anything really. If you're making a mushroom or you're making a dog, always have some kind of reference to look at. Okay. So now, as you can see, I'm just going to kind of pick here. So a lot of times I'll do this and I will use a bamboo skewer in the other hand. Let's see. And how are we going to do this? Is it going to be a heavy snow, or did we have a lighter snow? And we'll just press that on there. There. So you can start to see how that'll look. You're seeing a lot of the liquid clay, the bacon bond showing through now, but that's okay. Once we bake it, that'll be clear. You won't see that. And it's just, I'm just kind of picking away. There. Just a very simple technique. And if anything falls, that's okay, because that'll be covered with snow. So there we go. I will get a little bit more done, and I'll come back and show you what my progress has been. You know, I always tell people to work smarter, not harder, and I realized it would probably be difficult to put the snow in with all the branches once I already had finished the tree. So I popped my tree out real quick and just started doing the picking method for my snow. I do want it to be kind of heavy, unlike real life. And I don't know, it's probably very hard to see on camera, but I can start to see those little differences in color. It's not super dramatic, but it's just enough that it gives it a little bit more realistic look than if I just used plain white. So it's really starting to fill in quickly. So a lot of the ways that I used to work, you know, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I have kind of developed different ways of doing things over time. But a lot of times if I would have been doing snow, you know, I'd just put in a blob of white and then maybe use a toothpick to add some texture. But along the way I've kind of found this technique. I think it was a lady that I had seen that was doing, she did a waterfall, and at the base of the waterfall she used a technique like this so that it looked kind of foamy. And I thought, you know, that would really work well for grass. And then it was, whoa, that would really work great for leaves. And now, snow. I make sure I get in the back there so it really doesn't, you can't see the dirt. I did put a little bit of the Bacon Bond on so I wouldn't have to press so hard. I wasn't kidding when I said I use it all the time. I would definitely put that up there as one of my favorite Sculpey products. Alright, so I'm going to leave around the hole where I'm going to put the tree. I'll leave that, and I can fill that in afterwards. I do kind of like how a little bit of the brown shows through. You can see the texture on the snow a little bit better. Almost done. Alright, I'm pretty pleased with that. See? Alright, now I can pop my tree back in. Fiddle with how I want that. Alright. Okay. So I'm just going to keep kind of adding the snow to my branches, and when I come back I'll show you the finished product after it's finally baked. So I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, so as you can see I've got that kind of filled in. I wish you could see the bits of color in there. I know it looks just white really on camera here, but I'm mostly happy with it. I can bake it, and if I decide that I want some more snow on there, I can, or if I want to pick out a little bit, I might be able to, but so far I'm pretty pleased with it. So now we're just on to the base. So I take my black, I've just made a, you know, kind of simple rough ball with it. Now, press that into a slight disc. And then this is how I will set it in so that it will be able to stand on a tilt. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to very carefully take it out. Take just a cheapy paintbrush. Just gonna put a little texture on it. You'll see I like, I'll texture everything. I like that. Gives it a bit, I don't know, maybe a stone look for the base. I was so unsure of how I wanted to do the bases on these. And this just seemed to, it worked. Listen how confident I sound. It worked. But it did work. There we go. I'm just going to set it right on the paper I'll bake it on. Again, you're going to want to use that Sculpey Bacon Bond when you're either going raw to cured or raw to another material, whether it's wood or metal or glass. So I'll make sure that sticks. And when I press that in, it'll just fill right in. Okay. Oh, get it right over here. Set that in the depression that I made. I think we're done. It's time to go bake it, and I will show you the finished product very soon. Okay, so this is baked. While this was baking, I threw together some dinner, put that in the oven just as this was coming out. Poured a cocktail. So this is finished. I do not love it as much as I do some of my other seasons. I think it's just because of the lack of color. It's not really speaking to me like the other ones. So again, from the beginning, we had spring. Well, there we go. Spring. Summer. And that's where I used the snaking technique to cover the branches. I do like how that looks a little better. I did the same thing on fall, where you can really see where I was able to get that texture in the trunk and the branches. So I'm still pleased with this technique with the liquid Sculpey. I think going forward I might use it more on the branches and stay away from the trunk so I can get that texture in that I really like, and it's not quite so shiny. But there's the final piece. Winter. I hope you like it, and if you try any of these techniques, either let me know here, tag me on Instagram at TizzyWitch. I'd love to see what you came up with. And just so you know, especially for you jewelry makers, that liquid clay, so this has been probably, what, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, where polymer clay tends to get really brittle. And with this, it really is like a plastic coated wire, so it may really be a cool technique for you. It's not cracking. I would give it a shot. So the technique of how I did it is in my previous video. So, thanks for your time. And like I said, if you do anything, let me know. I'd love to see it. Until next time.